In our previous videos, we have used terms like node, elements, attribute, and properties. In this video, we will go ahead and try to understand what is the difference between node and element and attribute and properties. So first we'll focus on node and element. When we write HTML, browser converts that into a structure known as DOM tree. And DOM tree consists of multiple nodes. Like here, document, head, title, h1 and body, all these things are nodes. So to understand node and element, let's go ahead and look at an example. Everything we write in HTML gets converted to node. It can be elements like head or a comment that we write in HTML, or even an enter that we press just for the space. So these all things are nodes. Elements are special type of nodes that can only be specified using HTML tag, something like h1, h2, p, div, and script. But node can be anything. It can be a HTML tag, it can be comment, or the space. To understand this properly, we'll go ahead and select this div element with ID of main. To look at this in object form, we'll go ahead and do dir and press enter. Here, we know that every element has a special property called children. There is also another property called childNodes. Let's try to compare them. So when we compare them, we can see in children, we can see there are 3 children. But in our child node, we can see 8 child nodes. The reason we can see there is only 3 children is because children only returns all the elements. So look at this. Inside our div, how many elements are there? So we have h1 element, h2 element, and paragraph element. And that is the reason in our children property, we can see h1, h2, and p. But child nodes return all the nodes. That includes comment, even the space between 2 elements. So it starts with the text node. That is the space between div and the comment. The second one is comment. So this is the second node. The third node is from here to here. H1 is the fourth node. So similarly, in that way, there are 8 child nodes, but we only have 3 children. So child node returns all the node in that element, but children only returns a specific type of node known as element node. And you will see the similar behavior when you look at something like first child. First child returns the node, but first element child returns the specific kind of node, that is element node. And you'll see the same thing here. Last child returns the node, but last element child returns the element type of node. Let's move on to the next topic, that is HTML attribute and DOM properties. In general terms, attribute and properties means the same thing. But in the context of HTML and JavaScript, it becomes a bit confusing. To display anything on the page, we need to write HTML, and browser generates the DOM based on this HTML. Say for example, here we have an anchor element, and the DOM object generated for this contains a tag name of A and href of google.com. For element nodes, most standard HTML attributes such as href will directly become the property of the DOM object. Here we can see href is an attribute because it is in the HTML element. As soon as this HTML element gets converted to a DOM, href becomes the properties. So whenever it is in a HTML, you call them attributes, but in DOM it is called properties because it is inside an object. So let's look at this properly. So here we can see we have a div with a class of node and ID of main. If we select that element and store it in a variable called main and look at that variable in an object form, we'll see all these attributes or all these HTML attributes like class and ID becomes the properties of the DOM. So here if we are looking for something known as ID, we can go here and see the attribute of HTML element became the property of the DOM element. And it is the same thing, ID became ID. But in a lot of other cases, like think about class. So in attribute, it was class, but as soon as we see it in DOM, we can see class became class name. In some of the cases, attribute will remain same as the properties, but in some other cases, the attribute can change to some other name in properties. Like we can see it in class became class name, but ID remained to be the ID. In simple sentence, we can say the HTML attribute becomes DOM properties. Let's move on to the last topic, that is understanding createElement, createTextNode, and createComment. In node versus element, we got to understand that there are different kind of nodes: element, text, and comment. So we can use these methods to create those different nodes. So let's go ahead and create a element tag. So let's go ahead and create an element node. To do that, we use document.createElement and pass p as a parameter. We'll store that in a variable called p. Now if we access p, we'll see we have an element node. Similarly, to create a text node, we'll go ahead and say createTextNode and pass hello world. We can store this in a variable called hello. Now if we access hello, we'll see it is a text node, that is hello world. To create comment node, we use createComment and we'll pass the comment that we want to pass, that is like comment text, and we'll store this in a variable called comment. Now if we access comment, we'll see that this is how you create a comment using JavaScript and put it inside HTML. So we created three nodes: element node, text node, and comment node. What if I want to put this text and this comment node inside the element, that is p? To do that, we can just go ahead and say p.append. So we need to append the text that is stored in a variable hello and the comment. If we do that and access the value of p, we will be able to see that p has two things, that is hello and comment. So in this way, you can create different kind of nodes, and using append, you can append them into DOM. So in this way, we learned about node and element. Node is different types of node that is present in DOM. Element is a special type of node that we can define it using HTML tags. Attribute and properties. Attribute belongs to HTML, but properties belongs to the DOM created using the HTML. Using createElement, we can create a element node. Using text node, we can create text node, and using comment, we can create a comment node.